Straight 12 hours of laboriously chaotic parliamentary enterprise, from invasion of majority seating space in the final hours of the 7th Parliament to an obviously helpless parliamentary clerk, ballot snatching members of Parliament, and armed military personnel storming of the Chamber of Parliament, and finally the secret ballot that gave us a new speaker, an unprecedented one as that. For the first time, Ghana has a Speaker of Parliament who does not belong to the governing party but the opposition, and an uncertain description of the size in Parliament. Hello, welcome to the show, part of our continuous coverage of the inauguration of President Akufo-Addo. Coming up, a pledge to wholeheartedly work with a speaker from another party for the good of Ghanaians in his second and final term. We'll bring you that story and more. Also, 275 members of Parliament, dozens of dignitaries, invited guests and friends and family, all in one tent. Public health experts raised concern over the decision to conduct the inauguration in a tent at the forecourt of the Parliament. We'll also bring you highlights from the start of the 8th Parliament, details on who your new Speaker of Parliament is and what is happening in his hometown of Sombo. The Pulse is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu Affordable Safe Sanitation. My name is Gifty Andopia. Join us on DSTV 421, GoTV 144, and of course on YouTube where we're streaming live. You can join us with your thoughts on 054-010-9009. This is The Pulse. Please be my guest.
Live pictures from the chamber where both sides, the majority and the minority side, just clashed over the ballot box after one of the members of Parliament, after voting, allegedly showed the ballot to one side of the House. Now, the other side, unhappy with that move, charged on the stage and went to clinch the ballot box. The other side joined in and there was a scuffle. The scuffle is what is still unfolding here in the chamber between the minority.
Those are highlights and scenes in the chamber overnight as members of Parliament voted to select a speaker for the 8th Parliament, which term begins today. An MP snatched ballot papers, some exchanged punches, an open brawl, some pushed to the ground, fight over seats, and armed soldiers storming the chamber in what turned out to be further hostilities between them and the MPs. It's been a day described as a day of shame. That's how some legislators themselves summed up how they have conducted themselves in the overnight vote. In the end, Alban Bagwin emerged victorious in the contest with his former boss, Professor Aaron Michael Quay. More on the outcome shortly. First, a political desk report capturing all the events since sitting began a minute after midnight. Joseph Akable with our top story.
The NDC MPs were the first to enter Parliament. They proceeded to sit at the right side, which is reserved for the majority side of the House. This set the stage for what many knew would be quite an eventful night. It promised to be a heated contest as the NDC and NPP had each served notice they would nominate a candidate. As soon as the Clerk of Parliament took his seat, the two nominations were made, but this was not without drama and controversy.
Because that was a preliminary inquiry, which was reiterated by the Honourable Member for Swami. And therefore,
the Futu MP Afenyo Markin asked the clerk to confirm whether he had received an injunction order barring NDC MP James Kwesi from holding himself out as MP-elect.
I am aware of the process that has been mounted.
This resulted in hours of heated debate and resistance from the NDC MPs, despite the clerk ruling that the NDC member could not take part in proceedings.
And I received an order of interlocutory injunction.
He did participate in the election, but the process turned chaotic on at least 3 occasions. First, an NPP MP who was voting was accused by the NDC of showing his ballot to another person.
The Chamber of Parliament is the People's Chamber.
This threw the chamber into chaos amid the exchange of punches, kicking of ballot boxes to the ground, and the tearing of polling booths. All these were carried out by MPs. The military entered the chamber in what will for years remain unprecedented in an attempt to resolve the matter. It only worsened the situation as some MPs tried to lay hands on the ballot box amidst singing of revolutionary songs. Was eventually restored as the military retreated and exited. Chaos, however, reared its ugly head yet again, this time during the counting of ballots. NPP MP Carlos Ahinkra was captured on camera talking to Swami MP Oseiche Mensah-Bonsu few seconds after he headed towards the center of the chamber where counting was being observed by whips Frank Anodompre, Muntaka Mubarak and the Futu MP Afenyo Markin. Mr. Ahinkra in a split second seized the ballot sheets from the hands of an official and made a dash for the exit. This left MPP MP Afenyo Markin in what appears to be a surprised mood as Muntaka and other NDC MPs pursued Mr. Ahinkra. He was grabbed when he almost succeeded in exiting and became the recipient of punches and slaps from various quarters. This resulted in suspension of counting for hours, only for the clerk to return to announce Mr. Alban Babin as winner of the elections.
So that's how it went down in Parliament last night, just in case you didn't catch it and fell asleep along the line. But following these, Aban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin was sworn in as the Speaker of the 8th Parliament, pledging to serve the people of Ghana faithfully. the Chief Justice, His Lordship Justice Enini Yeboah, swore in Alban Bagbin in his acceptance speech, who pledged to faithfully serve the people. Here is a sneak peek of the life of the Speaker of the 8th Parliament, Alban Bagbin.
Except only those who tried conjuring what is not food. I will submit myself to the will of this House and pledge to serve my dear country, to serve you, and to serve all Ghanaians faithfully to the best of my ability. I will also conscientiously discharge my duties as a Speaker of this Parliament. I want to promise wholeheartedly to put at the disposal of Parliament and the country the store of knowledge, immense experience, and the huge data bank I have accumulated and accommodated over the 28 years that I have been a member of this House.
Those are the promises of the new Speaker of the 8th Parliament, Alban Sumani Kingsford Bagbin, shortly after he was sworn in, promising to uphold the virtues and be a unifier for the House. He won a chaotic, closely contested secret ballot in the Chamber of Parliament on Thursday against former Speaker Professor Aaron Michael Quay. Mr. Bagbin makes history for being the first Speaker of Parliament who is not selected by the governing party. Born on September 24, 1957 at Sombo in the Upper West region, the former Member of Parliament for Nadoli Kaleo and former Majority Leader started schooling at an early age at the Roman Catholic Primary School Sombo, did his second cycle education at Wa Secondary School and ended at the Tamale Secondary School, where he earned his ordinary level and advanced level certificates before entering the University of Ghana in 1977. Alban Bagbin is a graduate of the University of Ghana, attending from 1977 to 1980, and the Ghana School of Law from 1980 to 1982. He holds an Executive Master's in Governance and Leadership from the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, GIMPA. Alban Bagbin, a former health minister in the Mills administration in 2008, became Majority Leader in Parliament in 2009. Following a cabinet reshuffle in January 2010, he was appointed Minister for Water Resources, Works and Housing by President Atta Mills. In the Mahama administration, he was the Majority Leader of Parliament after he succeeded Dr. Benjamin Kumbo, who was appointed as the Minister for Defence. Mr. Bagbin has served as an MP since 1993 and was second Deputy Speaker of the 7th Parliament, which was dissolved at midnight on January 6, 2021. He didn't contest in the parliamentary elections in 2020, and his name came up for election as MP when the NDC and NPP won an equal number of seats at the polls. So you now have your new Speaker of Parliament. And one of the scenes which have actually attracted condemnation across the world today is the snatching of the ballot materials in Parliament. We'll hear what the security analysts have to say. But before that, let's get on Zoom. I have political science lecturer at the University of Ghana, Professor Ransford Jampo, joining me. Professor Jampo, thank you for your time and Happy New Year to you. Did you expect, or did what happened last night in Parliament fall within your expectation for the night prior? Hi, Professor Jampo. I think you're speaking, but you're muted. If you do, right, I do hear you now. So my question was whether or not what happened in Parliament last night did sit within the expectations you had for the night.
Well, what happened last night is, can be situated in the theory of legislative violence. And when we talk about legislative violence, essentially you are talking about violent clash between members of parliament, oftentimes triggered by a hung parliament, when there are divisive issues to be discussed, and then also when there is what we refer to as tight votes. And generally, although the sight of brawling among parliamentarians is oftentimes incongruous with the legislative stately image, it must be noted that members of parliament are also human beings who are often prone to stress and anger. What makes our case a bit, what gives us some hope in our case is that this attitude exhibited by our members, some of the people who did, them are people who were generally members of parliament elect. They were not sworn in members of parliament. And so one will want to hope that as they have now been sworn in, this attitude will not be carried over to characterize their activities.
What difference does it make whether or not you are being sworn in and you put up an clearly unacceptable behavior? What difference does it make?
Well, so I was trying to find out whether the attitude of the man who snatched the ballot papers and ran away with them could be brought before the Privileges Committee, for instance, when Parliament they resumed their real work. And somebody drew my attention that, look, he did it at the time when he was not a sworn-in member of Parliament. And so the point is, all legislative violence and some of these acts of rancor, acrimony, and tension that characterized parliamentary proceedings, happens all over the world in developing democracies and even in developed democracies. So all that you need to do is to crowd members of parliament together, fill them with fire of partisan ardor, perplex them with doubt as to the personal gain or loss that may follow their votes on any question at hand, and instill in them with some envy of and ill will towards their fellows, and you would naturally have abundant cause for a row. And so all that one needs is an excuse. Once they have an excuse to do whatever they want to do, they would be doing some of these things. But the point is, we have come a long way as a developing democracy. We've not been doing some of these things. But the point must also be emphasized that this is the first time we are having a hung parliament. And anytime you have a hung parliament and there are tight votes and no political party has the numerical strength to constitute enough majority, people would always want to assert themselves, particularly when they believe that the other side is trying to do something untoward to outsmart them. They would meet you, quote and unquote, and to use popular Ghanaian parlance, boot for boot. And when it becomes clearly competitive and the tensions rise, you would expect some of these things. And so it is not uncommon. It happens all over the world. But I want to hope and believe that given our general posture as a peace-loving people, now that these MPs have been sworn in as honorable members, going forward, I want to believe that they would approach some of these issues that brings tension among them with some trepidation and ensure that these things do not characterize their proceedings and deliberations.
Now, if you have followed, some of the things that have happened in other parliaments, even in the parliaments of developed world, we have seen some of these rather unfamiliar, chaotic scenes in some of these parliaments. Do you get the sense that there is a sort of ripple effect on what's happening or what, let's say, members of parliament in our part of the world feel they can do, because there tend to be a sense of total disregard for public perception of their behavior?
I don't think there is any. I don't think it's a ripple effect. What we are seeing is simple. Is the fact that we haven't had this kind of parliament before. We haven't had this kind of parliament that has majority, or that, they could not even today talk about majority and minority.
Right.
We haven't had this kind of parliament that has 137, and then one independent person. We haven't had it before. And so I'm saying these are some of the features that typifies such, kind of parliament all over the world. And so they are just reflecting what happens when you have a parliament where no political party has enough numbers to command majority of votes. But like I said, I want to hope and believe that you would agree with me that towards the end of all these things, they were calm and all that. So,
which is what I was going to come to, because it appears that the nature of the conversation at the end had everything to do with the election of the speaker. It looks as if the speaker, now coming from the side of the opposition, calmed the tensions there, would you say?
Yeah, because like I said, you are dealing with, do you even have opposition? Well, okay, you have a ruling government.
Of course.
You are dealing with an opposition that felt that it also had the numerical strength and all that. So they were pushing their agenda, and they didn't want anybody to outsmart them. They didn't want their efforts to be thwarted and all that. And so once they got what they wanted, and also once the party that has formed the government also started realizing that, look, we do not even have the kind of strength that we used to have in time past, they became calm. And once they also became calm, then generally you were expecting that issues will be settled in a manner that will bring some conciliation and then some peace. And so generally, this is what happened. And I want to hope and believe, as I indicated earlier, that going forward, this shouldn't be the conduct and behavior of our members of parliament. Yes, legislative violence happens all over the world. It will happen when issues are, when there is a hung parliament, and when there are divisive issues, and when political parties have more or less equal numerical strength, it will happen. But the point is, as a developing nation, we have shown over in the West African sub-region, and we've shown the world that we are interested in climbing higher the ladder of democratic progression. And so my caution or my word of advice is that let our members of parliament copy best practices, and not to allow the fact that, yes, we have a hung parliament to usher them into a regime where every deliberation or parliamentary proceedings may be characterized by rancor, acrimony, and tension.
Well, getting them to choose that path, is there a way you think that you reckon that Ghanaians can actually force the sides to work together without the scenes that?
No, there's a way for them to work together. First of all, they had a clerk of parliament who was clearly very weak and unprepared for the job. Okay, is
it fair to describe him as such, looking at what we had
we've witnessed this before. This is not the first time we are having to elect our Speaker of Parliament, and the proceedings have been managed by a clerk of parliament. We saw the days of Kentechi and co. I think, to my mind, he was quite weak and seemed unprepared for the task. Otherwise, he should have anticipated some of these things and quickly summoned a meeting among the leaders of the House to brainstorm and find resolutions or solutions to the issues before they de-escalated. And so, yes, that happened. But now you have a speaker of parliament who has the experience, persona, and pedigree in the person of Abam Bagbin. He's been there for 28 years, and he's been a second deputy speaker of parliament for some time. I want to believe that, given the experience that he has, he would quickly be able to meet the leaders of the House behind the scenes when some of these issues there are indications or signs that some of these issues may happen. When you're able to meet and have a certain respect, show a certain courtesy and respect to the leadership, issues would not de-escalate. And you would agree with me that when they met and then they decided on who should become the second deputy speaker and first deputy speaker, and they brought it to the plenary, and you didn't have much objection and opposition and all that. And so going forward, they should be well aware that no political party has the numerical strength to bulldoze its way through. If you try to do that, you'll be met with stiff opposition, and some of these things will happen. And so they should be politically wise and proactive in ensuring that they resort to maneuvers behind the scenes that would preempt or prevent the occurrence of some of these acts of brawl and conflict on the floor of Parliament. You work at it behind the scenes before you come to plenary. And if you do that, I want to believe our parliamentary practice will be a shining example for the rest of the Africa region.
I have two quick questions before we wrap up. Based on the back of what you have just said, would you describe what happened prior to the leadership now meeting to get things to flow naturally as a pure leadership failure? Perhaps if they had had that meeting earlier.
Well, pure leadership failure, I mean, it's apt. And like I said, the clerk was quite weak and seemed unprepared for the task.
No, I'm talking about the sides.
So next time,
the majority and the minority leader in the 7th Parliament at the time of these
well, somebody should have summoned them to a meeting. Normally, they are combatants, and you needed a referee, a third party, to bring them, a referee to stand in the middle, to bring them together, to settle the issues, out of the public view. And this wouldn't have led to what we all witnessed, which to my mind is very unacceptable.
Right. And my final question will be the presence of the military. At the end of the day, they had to bring in the military. Of course, the NDC surrounded them, chanted songs of revolution. Finally, they got out. To what extent do you think that even the mere optics could jeopardize our democratic credentials?
The one who sent or commanded the military to be there was politically childish and infantile. He shouldn't have done that. You didn't need the military to be there to... what did they go there to do? When they went there, they went to actually aggravate the situation. And so the practice of use, abuse, and deployment of soldiers to attempt to deal with matters that pure police and civilians can handle is unacceptable, is politically infantile, and must be condemned. Soldiers themselves are not happy when they are deployed to do this. They are trained to defend the territorial integrity of the nation, and they are not people who are trained to be handling or dealing with brawls that could be ironed out by consensus on the floor of Parliament. It's politically infantile for anybody to think about deploying soldiers to go and tell members of Parliament what to do. It doesn't happen. And you saw what was happening in America, regardless of the demonstration and how annoying the demonstrators were. It was the police that was trying to push them away and all that. They could have also brought in soldiers and all that.
They did bring in the National Guard, by the way.
We quickly want to deploy and abuse the military in everything that we do. It is politically infantile.
Leave us with your thoughts on Alban Bagbin, what he brings to this rather interesting set of parliamentarians that we have.
Well, first of all, I was quite surprised that the MPP decided to nominate Professor Michael Quay, my mentor, my teacher, that I thought was quite tired and had to be rested. And I was thinking they would have nominated a new face, somebody who enjoyed or enjoys the support of even the NDC. So in my earlier write-up, I put it out there that the best person for them should have been Freddie Blake, but they didn't listen. They went again with Professor Michael Quay. I knew it was going to be difficult. And yes, clearly, this is the result. You have Alban Bagbin, like I said, he's an experienced legislator, and I expect that we wouldn't see him as a typical divisive Speaker of Parliament. He is not your typical NDC person who will be there to do only the bidding of the NDC. Events in previous times show that yes, he's sat as a second deputy Speaker of Parliament, and if you look at even his contribution in the latter part, as an MP, to the issues of Parliament, he looked at issues dispassionately and all that. So my view is that he is going to be like Peter Alajite, who was a former MPP chairman, but when he became Speaker, he asserted the independence of his office and looked at things dispassionately, sometimes to the annoyance of even the party that selected him to be a speaker. But this is a kind of the type of speaker we want. Somebody who understands the issues and who will be fair, firm, and nobody can rough ride him, and nobody can disrespect him. So I expect. I don't think that all is lost for the MPP. I believe government business can still be carried out, and I do not expect Alban Bagbin to do anything that will make him overly partisan in sabotaging government agenda. I want to believe that he would work with all sides, and once you have enough consultations and there's mutual respect, I believe parliamentary proceedings will go on and government business will not suffer.
And speaking of which, President Akufo-Addo indicated that he's willing to wholeheartedly, as he puts it, work with him. Your thoughts on the president's speech as well? No,
it's an excellent speech, just that the president has no choice. I mean, this is not the time for you to, for any president to want to throw his weight about. You have no choice than to work with them. And so for me, he stated the obvious. All right.
Prof. Jampo, thank you very much for your time. Like I said earlier, I think you didn't hear me. Happy New Year to you. Professor Jampo there, he's a lecturer at the University of Ghana Political Science Department. So he's been sharing his thoughts, very detailed thoughts on what happened in Parliament, what it says of us, the way forward. And of course, like you heard him say, President Akufo-Addo, he says, has no choice but to work with what he has in Parliament. Watching the polls with me, Gifty and Doppia, of course, it is the day of the inauguration of President Akufo-Addo. This afternoon, we'll also be looking at how the members of Parliament themselves have been analyzing what happened leading to the election of the Speaker.
You came close to blows. What are some of the cracks and how are you going to deal with them?
Like I told you, and this unfolded live on national television and everybody saw it, there were embarrassing moments. Conduct unbecoming of members of Parliament across both sides of the House. There are people kicking ballot boxes, in protest at what they thought wasn't going right. There are people snatching ballot papers. I'm not going to defend any of it. I'm not sure who's going to defend any of it. In the end, we all must quickly come to the realization that we have a democracy to rebuild. And these cracks that have shown up are things that we have to quickly reflect. How do such disagreements even get better resolved in the future so that we don't have this kind of spectacle? But how do we continue with the consensus building, which has started now, to ensure that we're able to deliver the kind of governance that the people of Ghana want?
What do your standing orders say about some of the behavior? Because under normal circumstances, if someone were to snatch a ballot box, if some of those things were to happen, and some of those people took the oath right there, what does it say?
All of that is water under the bridge now. I think we have a task ahead of us, which is to rebuild these cracks, which is to ensure that we focus on what the people of Ghana want us to focus on, deliver value for them. I think that's where we should push our energy.
So these members of Parliament, so to speak, will go unpunished. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not the Speaker. I'm sure leadership and the speakership will have a view on that. But for me, the most important thing right now is that we have observed conduct we should not have observed. It's an opportunity for us to learn and to build from it and move forward and deliver what the people of Ghana want. Let's all focus on that.
Let me come quickly to Cassiel Atto-Forson on this beat. Now, I'll pose the same questions to you. Very embarrassing spectacles that we witnessed, never before seen in the Fourth Republic. Your immediate reaction?
I think it goes without saying and admitting that indeed what happened today.
Honorable, if you could speak up for us, please.
It goes without saying that what happened today is indeed very embarrassing. It is not good. it doesn't augur well for our democracy. But for me, in the end, I think democracy has succeeded. What has happened today is a victory for democracy, in spite of all what has happened, in the sense that for the first time in our history, we have indeed elected a Speaker of Parliament from the opposite side. You have someone who will be the President and the Vice President pending the petition, and also having a Speaker of Parliament from another political party. That in itself, for me, is something that we have to be happy about. It is victory for our democracy. In spite of the rancor, seeing the military coming in, for me, is the lowest of all what I've seen in my 12 years, or almost about my 13th year I've just started in Parliament. I have never come across a situation where military with weapons, including bombs and whatever it takes to enter our chamber. That in itself, for me, is the worst of all what I've seen. For me, that is worse than what Honorable Carlos Ahenkura did. That is worse. Because I take it like an attempt to dethrone democracy. For the military people to enter the chamber of Parliament is something that we should never condone as a country. And so I will urge the government of the day, leadership of Parliament, to take steps. And I believe that the people of Ghana deserves an apology. Members of Parliament deserves an apology from whoever sanctioned the military to come to the chamber. Because, look,
some have likened that situation to a coup d'etat. Is that what you would liken it to?
I mean, no doubt about that. It is indeed an attempted coup d'etat. Anything at all can happen. What we saw in there with the military coming in, for me, it's a dangerous thing, a bad precedent, and if care is not taken, if we don't condemn it and stop it going forward, will be very bad news for this country.
Honorable, let's wrap up on this point. Now, the NDC appeared very confident going into this, selection of a speaker that you would actually get the nod for your candidate, Alban Sumana Bagbin. Based on what exactly were you so confident?
We believe that the candidate that we presented, the Honorable Sumana Bagbin, has a track record. Remember, he's the oldest member of Parliament. He has served in this House 7 continuous terms, 28 years in a row. So he has made friends. Not just friends, but family.
So let's cut to the chase. You didn't have the majority in Parliament. So why were you so convinced you would be able to do this?
You see, we have 137. And we believe that he's that kind of person whose personality cut across the two divides, because this has been his home in the last 28 years. And certainly, he may have had family, friends that have transformed into family members. And certainly, with the kind of experience and competence he has, everyone else, if you're objective and think about the democracy of this country and put Ghana first, you will consider Honorable Bagbin as a very formidable person who can help improve our democracy. And that's why I'm not surprised to see what it is. In fact, I'm even disappointed because I was expecting more votes than what we saw today.
Very final bit, I just want a yes or no answer. So is the NDC going to cooperate, have a bipartisan relationship with the NPP in Parliament?
There's no option about that.
Thank you.
There's no option about that. That must happen in the interests of this country.
Kasila Tuforsen, thank you very much for engaging us. Now, one of the Jinapo brothers is here with me, 2 of them on different sides of Parliament, and I'm going to be engaging the Member of Parliament for Damongo. Honourable, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, sir. And,
so,
and
like I'm
to your cherished viewers and listeners.
Right, like I'm doing with everybody, I want to find out, the August House of Parliament, you're expected to be decent, decorous, and all of that. What do you think about the scenes that greeted us this morning in Parliament?
Well, I think, first of all, this is my first day in Parliament as a member, and what transpired today from midnight to this morning is absolutely unacceptable. I think that it's a dark day in Ghanaian democratic journey. It's a big shame and most unfortunate. I mean, it got to a point where some of us had to even intervene to try and separate people from getting into near fisticuffs. and so it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that it happened like that. But I think we've ended on a great note. We've ended on a very good note. And so I believe that all of us can take some pride and consolation in how proceedings have ended in Parliament this morning.
Okay, so right before I move on to Honorable Murtala, who's actually Member of Parliament for Tamale Central. Honorable, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Great. So I'd like to find out from you, the standing orders. There's been a lot of talk about your standing orders. In fact, I think some 3-4 years ago, we had, your leader, Oseche Mensah-Bonsu, talking about some of them and how they affect the work of Parliament. So I want to find out from you, with the scenes we've seen today in Parliament, is it something we should look at when it comes to your standing orders, the comportment of, parliamentarians? Is it something we should be looking at moving forward?
Well, I think what we saw today is not welcoming. It's not one to be desired. But when you look at it also, it's not particularly exceptional. I mean, if you look at global examples and the rest, I don't suggest...
But let's not talk global examples. In the Fourth Republic, we've not seen anything like this.
We haven't, and I don't suggest that it should ever happen again. But there have been instances of parliaments in Japan where seats are thrown at each other. I mean, even today, as we speak, the Capitol Hill in the United States is besieged by all manner of people and the rest. Passions can go up. I mean, in terms of people's vested interest. It shouldn't be. We should try to accommodate one another, and we should try to build consensus and cooperate and collaborate. But in the end, I mean, this is my first time, and I also found it a bit surprising that after all of it, people were embracing and negotiating and engaging, had the privilege of being involved in some of those discussions. And so if the standing orders have to be reformed, but I think that this speaker already is sending a good signal as to how he's going to proceed. It looks like he will be firm. It looks like he will instill discipline. And we all have to support him and cooperate with him so that at the end of the day, we can bring a lot more decency in Parliament. Right. But I think in all, Ghana is won. Ghanaian democracy has won. We've elected a speaker. We've elected a first deputy speaker and second deputy speaker. We're going to swear in our president. And so Ghanaian democracy seems to be resilient.
Honorable,
all the passions.
Stay with me because I would like to touch on that very bit you mentioned about the first and deputy speakers. But let me come now to the Member of Parliament for Tamale Central. Honorable, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Your initial reaction to what has happened in Parliament today?
Well, I think that, like my uncle said, he's supposed to be my uncle, even though he's not living by his responsibilities. I think what happened today was exceptional. It was exceptional because I have been in this parliament before. I was in the Sieve Parliament. Never in the history of this country, whether the first or the second or the third or the fourth republic, have we had armed military men deployed into the chamber. That was a dangerous spectre. That was completely unacceptable.
Do we know who exactly, made that deployment?
Minister for Defense. I know that for a fact.
You know that for a fact?
And I told him, when he was making I told him that was not necessary. I told him that it would be a blur on the integrity of this house. It doesn't matter the differences. And my brother had indicated, we argue. Sometimes in Parliament, I have experienced instances where the argument would reach its crescendo. But to that extent, it was not necessary. We had police men here. In fact, the marshals were there. And we have had that incident about 3 times. I don't think that anybody exchanged blows with anybody. It was just unacceptable. And I would urge that there should be proper investigation into the matter, who indeed invited the military men into Parliament. The reasons behind that invitation, I just don't think that is acceptable. 2, our colleague, what he did was just completely unacceptable.
When you say our colleague, whom are you referring to?
Carlos Ahenkra. It is absolutely not necessary. Look, we are supposed to be the house that makes the laws. And we are supposed to be examples for many people. This thing was carried live. TV3, GTV, Joy TV, all of you are on DSTV. The entire global community, they were watching. And I believe that because of the interest and the enthusiasm that it came with, people actually watch. Do you know what this thing will do to our democracy? We have touted ourselves as a country that should be an example for many countries in Africa. For us to engage in this is just unacceptable. Whatever the case is, I don't think that it is time we start talking about the challenges that we got ourselves into. I still insist that there should be proper investigation to ascertain what happened. I would expect the NPP as a political party to sanction Carlos. To be very honest, if they want to demonstrate to the people of this country that is a party that believes in democratic principles and governance, I think that he ought to be sanctioned.
Would you suggest same for the likes of your party's whip, Alhaji Muntaka? Would you suggest same for him, because it wasn't just him, there were others who were also taking ballot boxes and all of that. What would you suggest for him?
As a matter of fact, the Honorable Muntaka's position was very clear. The standing orders are very clear. The standing order says that in choosing the speaker in a process of elections, it must be strictly secret ballot. There is nowhere in the standing order that says that you should do it in the open. The leadership of the House, particularly from the majority, Honorable Muntaka and Honorable Haruna Idrisu, had indicated to the leadership of the minority that, look, this is just unacceptable. And if you observed, several attempts to stop that didn't yield any result. And I was wondering why anybody who believes in these principles and believes in the standing orders will engage in the things that he engaged in. Look, when I say that there should be a comprehensive investigation, it doesn't mean that it should be limited to members of the NPP who engage in any other person. There should be investigation.
All of them should be investigated. I'll be coming right back to you on that. And that was a question I was going to pose to you, Honorable Jinapo. The secret ballot, it's in your standing orders. What was the problem with having a secret ballot? I mean, this is the very same process that we follow in our general elections. Why the problem?
Well, I don't think there should have been any problem with regards to the need for a secret ballot. And we did have a secret ballot.
Yes, but that was not what the NPP was pushing for.
We did have a secret ballot.
But that was not what you were pushing for. Why? The question is why.
I was not privy. I didn't observe any situation of NPP people insisting that there shouldn't be a secret ballot. I think there was a secret ballot. People went and cast their votes. But people are allowed to handle their ballot paper as they choose to drop it in a ballot box.
Was the NPP ever afraid that the NDC had infiltrated your ranks, and so you wanted to see how your members were voting?
Well, I think that the vote was at large. It was thrown for every member to cast their vote. I mean, it wasn't an NPP NDC vote. This election wasn't an NPP NDC vote. And as you see, the elections were inconclusive. The elections were not concluded. We could not declare the results. We just had to, in the interest of the country, in the interest of national interest, to come together to build, to engage and agree on a consensual arrangement. What happened?
I want you to clarify this for me, because your members keep saying.
That's my colleague Akakbo there, Benjamin Akakbo there, speaking to some of the members of parliament afterwards. So let's head straight into the new parliament. We're going to see quite a good number of new faces. We're going to engage some of them. What do they bring on board? What do they make of what happened yesterday? We'll take a very quick break. When I return, I'll be talking to the new in Parliament, Member of Parliament for Imprayeso Constituency. I also have Member of Parliament for Karaga, who will also be joining me, and then Member of Parliament for Brekum East as well. These are some of the new faces in the House. We'll be talking to them. Do stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for your time. This is the day of inauguration, and this is, of course, our continuing coverage of the inauguration. It is brought to you by Petrosol. Clean fuel in full quantity is always a delightful experience. Cowbell Coffee, taste it, love it. Magdan Shipping and Logistics Limited, your total logistics partner. Pad Eva Limited, your home of modern furniture. And DBS Roofing, we truly are your roof experts. Festiva, adding flavors to your life with 3-year lotteries, Ghana's premier and biggest jackpot lottery. That's star 787 hash and HEPA Plus mixture for your general well-being. I'm going to hop on Zoom right now. I have Davis Opoku-Ansah. He's the NPP Member of Parliament for Imprayeso Constituency. Sir, thank you for your time and good afternoon.
Hey.
I also have joining us on Zoom Dr. Muhammad Amin Adam, who's Member of Parliament for Karaga. Doc, thank you as well. And Happy New Year to you both. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think I can hear you both now. So I just want to start by asking you what a night it had been for you. Maybe a dawn it had been for you, and that's a dawn of a new page in your life. And it started rather chaotically. I want to bring you, let me start with you, Dr. Amin Adam. Were you expecting what happened in Parliament last night? It looks like you're muted, sir. If you can unmute for me.
Yeah.
Yes, I do hear you.
Hello?
Yes, I hear you perfectly.
So I didn't expect that, but I wasn't surprised because I observed the developments that led to the events that we saw last night in terms of the fact that both the MPP side and the NDC side claimed they constituted the majority caucus. Also, because we knew that the MPP was going to nominate a speaker, the NDC also nominated the speaker. And so in such competition, especially when the stakes are so high, you will expect that it will be keen, but not to the extent of what we saw yesterday. And so, yes, it was chaotic. I was disappointed. I think it was a dark phase in the political development of our country. And also demonstrated the fact that we need to look at our institutions again in order to ensure that we can anticipate and put corrective measures to avoid the situation that we saw, which exposed our vulnerability to the world, and the weaknesses in our democratic culture was also exposed to the world. We could have avoided that, but I think that, reason did not have chance to work at the time. And so I was disappointed, really.
At that time, what were you doing? I mean, when people were, Carlos Ahingwa, for example, was snatching the ballot papers, the military came in, the back and forth, Muntaka Mubarak and other people kicking the box, etc. What were you doing personally, and what was going on in your mind?
I sat there watching and observing what was happening with dismay. I just couldn't understand why people who have so much experience, having served in Parliament for some of them 3 terms, 4 terms, and that they did not have that culture of dialoguing and then sitting down to talk. And then they were, destroying ballot boxes and then kicking boxes and picking ballot papers. Those were very undemocratic. But we also heard people saying that Parliament is a master of its own rules. And I was just wondering why Parliament does not have rules governing the conduct of elections to the extent that people who misbehave the way people misconducted themselves should be punished. I watched the marshals, watching with disbelief, but they were helpless.
Yeah.
And I just thought that the security system in Parliament is very appalling. And that also gave way to the kind of conduct that we saw yesterday.
Appalling security system in Parliament. Let me bring in Mr. Opoku-Ansah, Member of Parliament for Imprayeso. So once again, congratulations to you. What for you was the expectation going in? Of course, Dr. Amin Adam says that he looked at the events that had occurred prior to last night. I'm sure you expected some sort of heckling here and there. Did it fit in what actually happened?
Yeah.
But I must say that it went beyond what I was expecting. Clearly, if you monitored someone like Okudzeto Ablakwa and the kind of war drums he started beating some 2 weeks ago, I mean, I was not expecting anything different from what they did. Just that I felt that they went overboard. The NDC came into the House last night with a posture. It is either them or no one else, and I think it's not good for our democracy.
Are you blaming the NDC when we clearly saw that both sides were, as for lack of a better word, reckless as possible?
Well, of course. I mean, if you look at the genesis of this whole heckling and the genesis of this whole brouhaha, it started with NDC. Muntaka had to snatch a ballot paper from a parliamentarian. I mean, he thought that the parliamentarian had shown his ballot paper, something we did not see even at our side. Then again, there was a halt of the process. It started again. Then Muntaka came in again. I mean, we saw what John Jinapor did, kicking ballot boxes and all of that. Whatever happened in Parliament last night, this morning, is not one that we should encourage, especially looking at the situation at hand. If you have 137 on both sides, what you need is to be able to collaborate. What you need is to be able to create an atmosphere where you can work together and not be kicking each other and insulting each other and using palatable words and all of that. So I was a bit surprised, but I saw it coming due to some comments from MPs from the NDC. I saw it coming. I was not all that surprised, but I think they went overboard.
And what was going through your mind at the time? Or better so, what exactly were you doing when all these were happening?
Well, I was in my corner. I mean, I'm a newcomer. It's important for me to study what goes on in the House and also contribute positively in shaping the very democracy, shaping the legislative arm of government. So I was just monitoring and picking points and picking my notes. And hopefully when we get the opportunity to, as it were, account for what really happened, we are able to make some meaningful suggestions so that, we can have a very good 8th Parliament. It has just started. I was discussing with a colleague MP who is a senior. He's been in Parliament for about 3 terms. He tells me this is the longest night Parliament has been in session, and it tells you what we should expect in this 8th Parliament. But we are ready. We are ready to spend long nights in Parliament just to ensure that government business runs smoothly. For me, that is a commitment that I get from both sides. That's a commitment I get from the new speaker. And I think it's important that we move on as a nation.
Okay. Moving on, one thing I wanted to talk about, and let me bring in Dr. Aminata at this point, about what exactly it is that you're bringing on board as new entrants that will enrich the life of this 8th Parliament, that will make it different from the rather chaotic one that we've seen. Dr. Aminata, I want you to take on that question for me before I come to Mr. Opoku-Ansah.
Well, I think that as a newcomer in Parliament, I was impressed about some statements made by the new speaker. He indicated that he will apply the rules. He will be fair to people. He will not allow interruptions, unnecessary interruptions. And so where the speaker is firm and then able to apply the rules, I believe that there will be sanity. Okay. But let me also tell you the other side that I observed out of the events yesterday. The resilience of the Ghanaian, that in spite of all the challenges we went through, reason prevailed at the end. Leadership were able to sit down at the table they dialogued, they negotiated.
Something they could have done way longer. Something they could have done way earlier.
This is what I'm talking about, the resilience. This is what I'm talking about, the resilience. That should tell you that no society is perfect. You will face challenges like we faced yesterday, but there are countries where people ended up, throwing chairs at each other. And there are countries where the military will intervene and stage a coup. In our own country, in the past, politicians did not go to that extent when military adventurers took advantage and staged a coup. But yesterday, in spite of the fact that the military came in, they came in to just to help restore order.
Was that necessary, do you think? Was that necessary?
Well, it wasn't necessary to some extent, but the reason for their coming can also be justified, because the chaos in that house and the appalling security situation in that parliament, I think called for some intervention. Maybe the police.
But we had the police. We had the police officers there. We had marshals who work in Parliament.
Yes.
We didn't need the military there, did we?
It is the marshals I'm talking about. If you watch events, they stood there helplessly. They stood there helplessly.
They could have been supported by the police.
They couldn't do anything. So that is why I'm saying that we needed some intervention of some sort, whether it is the military that should have come in or the police that should have come in, that is subject to debate. But we needed a certain intervention of some sort. But in spite of their intervention, it did not escalate to what we saw in our past as a country, where politicians did not go to that extent, and yet the military came in and overthrew our government. We were eventually able to sit down at tables and to dialogue and to negotiate. And you saw the rest of the events leading to the election of the speaker and the deputy speaker.
So back to my question again,
Doc. That is the other side of the Ghanaian that we need to also highlight.
Yeah, back to my question. I just wanted to address this particular question for me about what you bring, because you have been a member of the government. And with the way that the election has gone, it looks as if people want some level of change. I want to find out, coming into Parliament, what you are bringing on board to enrich this Parliament, if there's any specific
I think that this Parliament is going to be very competitive.
Hello, Doc. Did I just lose you? Okay. It looks like the Member of Parliament for Karaga. I think you have just put off your microphone, Doc, if you can bring it back on for us. Okay. Let me bring in Mr. David Sopoku. Okay. I'll just come to you. Doc, can you hear me? If you hear me, do say something and try and put on your microphone. It seems it's off. Okay, let's sort that out. Say something. Let's see if I can hear you. Yes, I do hear you. So you are making the point for me before I go back to Mr. Opoku-Ansah about what you're bringing on board. You say that this Parliament is going to be what?
This Parliament is going to be very competitive, and therefore, what I think will be important is the quality of debate. The quality one brings to the debate in terms of the research you do, the knowledge that you bring, the expertise that you have, that I think is what is going to appeal to the sensibilities and to the senses of members in order to enrich the debate and the discussion and then the decisions that we make in the House. That is what I bring, I also
Are you looking at a particular... okay, please go ahead.
I also want to say that we as new members will have to learn. There is a lot we have to learn, especially the standing orders, the rules of the game, in order for us to situate our expertise within the rules. I mean, as I indicated earlier, the Speaker said he's going to apply the rules. He's going to allow people to talk, no interruption. And so you should come in with some expertise, with some research, with some knowledge, so that at the end of it, reason will prevail and not by might. This is the way our country can develop this is the way we can promote our democracy.
Okay. When I come back to you, I'm going to Mr. Opoku Ansah, but let me also indicate that we've had another person join us. Collins Adumako Mensah is Member of Parliament for Efija Kwabre North. Mr. Adumako, you are welcome to the show. Mr. Opoku Ansah, I wanted to talk to you about what your own contribution will be to this Parliament to enrich it. What is your area of expertise and how do you intend to put it to good use in this Parliament? Mr. Opoku Ansah, you are muted.
Hello,
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
All right, just like what my senior brother said, I mean, this is going to be a very competitive Parliament, and it requires that you do a lot of work. I'm looking at grabbing within the next 3 months the standing orders and other rules of the House, so that I am able to make very meaningful contributions to the discussions on the floor, and especially in the committee work. But I mean, looking at what happened, I mean, with respect to the 2020 elections, it's important we also blend that with visitations in our community, and it's one thing I would want to look at. I mean, clearly we need to engage our community in the decisions that are taken at Parliament. So it's important to engage them regularly, so that we get to understand what they also feel. I mean, what they also think about the policies and programs of government and how we are able to shape it. Yes, I mean, sometimes you'll be surprised. You get to a town, the kind of suggestion an elderly man does goes a long way to really affect your thinking. And I feel that once we engage in participatory democracy, we open up our doors to others to contribute. We will be able to make some meaningful contributions in the House. I'm also looking at spending much time in the House. I really would want to be a master of the rules, so I really want to spend much time study the rules and
how do you balance that with visiting your constituency? We have seen how people have been, so to speak, punished for not being very active in their constituencies when they got into Parliament. So
just like what I said, I mean, it's important you put in place program structures that regularly engage your community. Right. So, for instance, I intend setting up an MP's office in the community with a staff there that I mean, people can easily walk into and make complaints or I mean, suggestions, anything that they would want their MP to know. It's important that they get to that office and do that. I have said to my people that engaging them will be one thing I would want to do. I mean, at every recess, every opportunity I get, it's important for me to travel around the constituency and tell them what government is doing, tell them what Parliament is doing, and seek for their views. I mean, sometimes you never know, but a point you get from a village like a Tobiase can help you advance a very serious argument on the floor of the House.
True.
And
that's very true.
It's important that we engage with them regularly.
Okay.
So yes, we want to engage in the parliamentary work, but I think that the communal engagement also plays a critical role in that.
I will wrap up my conversation with asking you maybe which of the committees perhaps you feel like you can maybe support with your expertise. But let me bring in Honorable Adumako who has just joined us. So I was asking your other colleagues, what do you make of what happened yesterday? For you, let me add this. Will it to what extent will what happened, this dawn, influence the way things go for you, the way that you behave in Parliament, for example? Honorable Adumako, I think you are muted.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I do. Please go ahead.
Yes, and I just joined, and so I did not hear what my senior colleagues spoke about. But back to your question. In fact, this morning I was a little bit surprised. I knew we were going to face some discomfort because of the numbers. but I never envisaged that it was going to escalate to this kind of level. So I was a little bit surprised, but I don't think it's going to affect my parliamentary work. For me, I said it's the baptism of fire. It's rather motivates me to position myself going forward. So I don't think it's going to have any negative effect on my work at all.
What was going through your mind? What did you do when all these were happening?
I was shocked, especially when one of the NDC MPs pushed Honorable Esla off her seat, and he forcefully did that, and Esla fell. And I was shocked. I mean, this is my first time in Parliament, and within 10 minutes entering the Parliament House, the first
but
thing
did you see her
is
pushing somebody too? After she fell, she got up, she pushed someone. Actually, she sat on another MP. That wasn't good, was it?
Well, I think if you realize if I watch the video quite clearly, after she was pushed and she fell, I think she also pushed the other colleague who was closer to her.
Yes,
and I think that was done out of anger.
She ignored the person who actually pushed her off the seat and attacked someone else.
I'm sure that was out of anger. That was out of anger. From my reading of the video, I think that was out of anger.
I see. So, Honorable Aminata, I'm coming back to you so that maybe we can wrap up our line of conversation there. You are known to be an energy person. You've been in this space for a while. I mean, I'm not quite sure whether or not you will be on any of the committees, any of the relevant committees. Do you think you're qualified to be there at this point? And is that what it looks like?
Yes, I've indicated to our whip, the chief whip, that I would like to serve on the Energy and Mines Committee, so I can bring my expertise, to bear on the discussion. I mean, as one of my colleagues said, there is so much work at the committee level. And at that level, the committee invites technical people from the ministries to participate in discussions. And so if you are already a technical person, that comes in handy. It will enrich the work of the committee. But there is something I wanted to draw attention to.
Yeah.
I mean, which I believe many people may not understand. The way things went in Parliament yesterday, leading to eventual election of the Speaker, things could have been worse.
Oh, really?
Things could have been worse.
Because this looks like the worst-case scenario for us.
No, really, because we could have run into constitutional crisis. All the time, I was praying that the NDC side did not walk out. Because if you look at Article 93(1) of the Constitution, it states that, and I quote, "There shall be a Parliament of Ghana which shall consist of not less than 140 members of Parliament." Unquote. That's what the Constitution says.
So without that number...
the MPP has 137 plus 1, which is the independent. That gives us 138. So if the minority had gotten angry to the extent that they were not ready to participate and they will walk out, then we will not have properly constituted Parliament.
But they had an agenda to execute. They had an agenda to execute. They wanted to have the speakership, so they wouldn't risk it.
Yes, that is why I'm saying that in spite of their agenda, it was very important that they did not walk out, because they could have said that, okay, if we were not going to get what we wanted, then we're going to walk out.
Right.
And that would have thrown the whole country into constitutional crisis.
Okay.
The swearing in of the president wouldn't have taken place today. And so I'm saying that in spite of all the challenges, reason prevailed at the end.
I like how you like to look
through, and then we saw the election.
I like how you like to look at the positive and to focus on the positive side. I mean, hopefully you bring that on board in Parliament as well, and that will help us. But let me focus a bit more on Karaga. What unique challenges are there in Karaga that with your presence in Parliament you hope to help solve?
Well, Karaga has about 3 main challenges. One is water, good drinking water. They don't have good drinking water. Most places are without good drinking water. And that is very worrying for me. that you will have communities where you have hardworking farmers, where you have teachers posted, health workers posted, and yet they don't have good drinking water. So that is my main challenge, that I will need to be able to contribute to discussions in parliamentary, influence the water policies of the government, towards solving the water challenges in my constituency. The second one is roads. And I want to serve on the roads committee as well, apart from energy and mine.
How will you get the time to do everything?
I may be so. No, you are allowed to serve on 2 or more committees.
As a new member, wouldn't you be taking on too much?
Every member is supposed to serve on 2 or more committees.
I'm just asking if, as a new person, because you have just told us that you want to prioritize understanding the standing orders. So as a new member, wouldn't that be too much to take on?
No, I mean, that is the work we are voted to do. It's our work. And therefore, one should be able to apportion your time to ensure that you meet the expectations of your people.
So the second year of roads,
people have given me the opportunity to serve them. And I should ensure that my deliberations in Parliament will inure to their benefit.
Okay, so you told me about the water situation, and you were talking about the roads. And the president has said that this will be the second year of roads for him as well. So let's wrap it up on, the things that you want to do in Karaga.
So as let's talk about the water, I also want to be able to influence the road policies and the road sector programs, so that my constituency will be captured in some of the road projects, because there are areas in my constituency that are called overseas. But overseas, just because there are no culverts, there are no bridges, they are cut off from the rest of Karaga anytime it rains. And so it is my priority as well to influence the discussions on roads and the allocation of road projects so that my area will be considered. So these are the 2 challenges. The others are education, health, but they are recurring challenges, and we will continue to work on them as work in progress. But water and roads are major issues that I want to devote my attention to, so that my people can also get transformation that will translate into better living conditions for them.
I'll just go around and come back to you finally. Then we wrap it up. Honorable Opoku Ansah, what are your own peculiar problems in Impriaso, and how do you intend to use your presence in Parliament to deal with them?
Well, so first of all, I'm looking at skills development for my youth. I mean, Kouza notably, we are noted for trading. Yeah. So you have a lot of these young people migrating to Accra. I'm looking at ways of putting up a policy, a program where we can engage these young ones in some skills training, especially those with little or no educational background. So that's one area I'm looking at, the youth development aspect of mine.
Okay. And in terms of the committee work, which one are you eyeing?
Well, my background is in communication, but that is subject to the whip of Parliament. I've given him my CV. He's indicated to me 1 or 2 areas. I'm looking forward to learning. I mean, even if it's not my area, I think that with the commitment and the zeal that we have, we are able to learn quickly to apply whatever knowledge we have in other areas to our parliamentary work. So I'm looking forward to a committee that would engage me. I really want to learn. I really want to serve my people. So things that I can, policies and programs I can also contribute, which would likely affect the lives of my people, will be one thing I'll be prioritizing in the House. Yeah. So yes, Doctor talked about roads. Roads is very it's a challenging issue in Kwahu for us now. Most of our major roads, especially the cocoa growing areas, have issues with their roads, and it's one area we'll be looking at. Water situation is also bad. We'll be looking at youth development and also tourism, how we are able to grow our tourism potential so that it does not only become the usual Easter and September 1st, but I mean, week in, week out. We can have some huge tourism drive in Kwahu, where it can create meaningful employment for our young people, for taxi drivers, for food vendors. I mean, something practical that can affect the lives of my people.
Right.
So these are the areas that I'm looking at.
Employment, water, tourism. Let me bring in Honorable Member Adumako on your expertise and in which committee perhaps you think you can help or in Parliament on, and then what specific challenges, major challenges there are in your constituency, how you intend to use your presence in Parliament to deal with it.
Well, I'm a banker, so I'm a finance person. And so I presented my CV to the whip, and I indicated to him that I would have preferred to be on the finance committee or trade and industry committee. Those are the two committees that I indicated to him. And the third one I chose was mines and energy. Not that I have expertise in mining or energy, but it's an area I want to learn from people like Doctor. It would be nice to be in a committee with Doctor.
Well, you said it, and he's had you here on the post.
Yes.
Do alert me when it happens.
But Doctor is our senior. I mean.
Yes, he's our senior.
Okay.
He's our senior.
We are looking forward to worrying him a lot. I mean,
he's smiling. He's smiling at that. We'll see how it goes.
We're going to learn from each other. We're going to learn from each other. We all have to contribute.
All right.
Okay, so Honorable Adumako, let me have you finish with your points, and then we'll wrap up finally with your final words.
Yes, on the issue with the issues within my constituency, there are two basic problems within the constituency. One is roads, and one is employment issues. Fortunately for me, the year of roads 2016 saw a major facelift. And so the road network from Ahinkru all the way to Chitreri is under construction.
Good for you.
What I need to do is just to follow up. The next one is the youth development. My constituency has about roughly 60,000 people, and about 70% of them are between the ages of 15 and 45. So it's a very youthful constituency. I've said to them that I think 50% of my time will be focused on engaging the youth and trying as much as possible to develop their skills so that at least they can be employable, self-employment and all that. So that is an area that I'm going to focus really, really hard.
Okay. I'll take your final words, the three of you who have been kind enough to join us this afternoon. So let me start with you, Doc. I understand there's a big party blowing up tonight. How are you? How are you celebrating, the new page in your life, or just making your final words for me?
Yeah, just a small meeting in my home with the family.
Okay.
To just reflect on what happened since last night, and you are invited.
So you have you got kids? I mean, how many of them, and how do they take what is happening?
Yes, 2, but I have so many other kids who are with me. Yeah, and from friends and other extended family.
So yesterday they were watching this on TV, I suppose.
They must be sleeping.
Good for you that they didn't see all this chaos. But I mean, this morning they would have seen the videos all over the place. And did they ask you, Daddy, what happened?
I'm happy they didn't see. It wasn't a good sight for children to see how grown-ups like us, will conduct ourselves the way we did. I mean, that would certainly have changed their perspective about democracy. It would have changed their perspective about politics. And it was just fortunate for us that children like that would not have had opportunity to watch what happened. But Ghanaians should not despair. I mean, for the first time, you have a speaker from one party, and then you have the executive from another party. This is a stage in the development of our democracy. So let's test it and see. Okay. A time will come when you may even have majority from one party, and then the executive on the other side. And so we will mature, make all the mistakes, but eventually we will perfect our democratic culture. And so let's see how things go. I am very hopeful of the future.
I'm happy your kids didn't see this. I was I was totally devastated, sad as a Ghanaian. So it's good that the kids didn't see this. We don't know how it's going to affect them. Honorable Pokwansa, I'm sure you have kids too, and hopefully they didn't see it either.
I do. I'm not too sure. I do awake around that time. I mean, the most important thing is that it has happened, and it's important that we look into the future.
So where's the party at? At your home or at the hotel?
Yes, I'm presently not at home. I'm in the hotel. I'm trying to pack up I need to get to Mbraiso. I need to go to my constituency and meet with them.
Oh, that's where you're having the party? The victory or the celebration?
We're going to do some thank you or Thanksgiving service.
Okay.
And then we'll follow it up with some small get-together for my constituents, just to appreciate what they have done in my life and to assure them that I am there because they put me there. My commitment to them is 100% service to the community, service to Parliament, service to Ghana. I mean, we all have. We all must develop interest in ensuring that Nana Akufo-Addo succeeds, whether you are MPP or NDC or independent. Nana Akufo-Addo must succeed, and it's important that the 8th Parliament learns to work together. And I'm happy about the comments from the speaker, the new speaker, and hopefully when we get onto our various committees and when we begin working together, we'll create that necessary bonding. And I know that, NDC, MPP, we are all Ghanaians. NDC, MPP should never, ever divide us. So it's important that we work together, we build that collaborative effort, we put in that collaborative effort to work together.
Right. Let me bring you in, Collins Adumaku-Mensah, your final words as well. If you want to talk to us about the party or about who has seen the video that makes you a bit embarrassed.
Well, fortunately, my kids did not watch the proceedings. I think my wife did. And she didn't sleep throughout the night, throughout the evening. She kept calling and finding out what was going on. Are you safe? I said, oh, I'm very safe. Everything is fine. She was worried, but it's part of the game. And as my senior brother said, what happened at the chamber this morning should not in any way make us uncomfortable. It should not discourage anybody. I think we still have a very strong democracy. You should see us at the lobby right after the heated arguments in the chamber. We're all hugging each other, taking some coffee here and there. So I appeal to everybody who watched us this morning and who was disappointed that we are sorry. However, we've been able to patch our differences beautifully right after the heated debate. Okay. I had my Thanksgiving some weeks back at the constituency. So probably this weekend, meet with some few friends and family over a drink. Nothing much.
Party, okay.
Please invite me.
I'm really grateful, and I wish you all the best in the next 4 years. I would love to see you succeed in the interest of all the constituents who have given you that mandate to be in Parliament. Thank you so much for your time. I've been talking to Dr. Mohammed Amin. Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam is a member of Parliament for Karaga. I also had Collins Adumaku-Mensah, who is a member of Parliament for Efija Kwabre North, and Davis Opoku-Mensah, who is member of Parliament for Imprieso. 3 of the new entrants sharing their thoughts of what happened yesterday, what they expect to happen going forward, what they think they can do for their constituents with their presence in Parliament and all of that, including who has seen the videos. Their children, most of them haven't seen it, which is good. Well, some wives have seen it and they were worried. This is still The Pulse with me, Gifty, and the Apia. We want to tell you a bit more about what the home or the hometown of the new member of the new speaker feels like right now. We have a report from there by Rafiq Salam. We'll be talking to you about it, and we'll also give you highlights of President Akufo-Addo's speech when he was, inaugurated a while ago. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's take a look at the security breaches that occurred in Parliament. Security analyst Colonel Festus Abuaje, retired, has expressed worry and concern over what has been described as the invasion of the military in the chamber. He's been condemning their action and demanding answers.
Well, it could have been worse than that, so it's still good. Thanks for having me.
Great. I just want your reaction. I mean, what do you say to what's the symbolism of this? Military in the chamber.
Very unusual. Extremely unusual and very concerning. Now, my humble understanding is that the military is not a frontline law enforcement institution. So it is out of place. The situation in the House, which is hallowed grounds, where they are resorting to their usual ways of expressing dissatisfaction with the process by shouting, banging, no exchange of blows as such, no weapons drawn, no destruction of property, no injuries to members of parliament and so on. Is that sufficient grounds to bring in the military? That's the first question. The second question, which I posed earlier, is what is the chain of that command? With senior police officer on the ground, telling that the situation that was unfolding within the House was beyond the capacity of the police to handle, and therefore they needed the military to come in. I want to assume that the military was within the premises of the parliament. And I'm sounding a word of caution that the military should not be involved in frontline policing functions within the state, let alone within the House of Parliament. It's very, very wrong. You see, because we saw signs of similar disturbances within the U.S., with more destruction of property to the capital. We saw how the state, that's the state of the United States, responded gradually, with only one loss of life through gunshots by law enforcement officials. The other three, I'm told, were as a result of complicating health conditions. You see, that is how you manage situation. This tendency of using the military, the Ghana Armed Forces, if that is what we are saying, is wrong. And I'm trying to suggest that if it gets into the health of soldiers, that this country is being run with and by the military, some of them might be encouraged to now take the realms of power. And that is not what we are looking for.
So, Colonel Festus Abuaje, are we able to say for sure that these were men from the Ghana Armed Forces?
The Ghana Police Service doesn't dress in the olive green fatigues. They don't. But wherever they came from, they are not Ghana Police Service. That situation within the House of Parliament should have been controlled by the Ghana Police. And I think 24 hours or so ago, the debate was about why the police was mobilizing 6,000 police officers to maintain security and public safety. So they had a number. You see, 6,000, not even 6,000. 50 of them within the House could have managed that situation. Maybe even 25. You see, but be it as it may, those were not Ghana Police Service personnel. Whoever they are they frontline institutions in law enforcement as mandated by the Constitution? You see, there is a danger. With weapons, not sidearms. These are assault rifles that are used in fighting external aggression, drawn in the House of Parliament when they are in the process of electing the speaker and the deputy speakers and so on and so forth. These are the kind of democracy that we are looking for.
I've heard you, Colonel, talk about this issue. Indeed, you condemned the use of military in the 2020 elections. Now we see them either whether or not their presence was just to show force, just to say that we're here. If this becomes uncontrollable, we will take charge. How do we resolve the issue of the use of military in civilian situations?
First of all, let me correct the misconception. Let's go back to the allegedly or alleged peaceful demonstrations around the offices of the EC. We saw a range of police capabilities deployed. We saw police officers with sidearms, with batons, with screens, with rubber bullets, and guns that could fire those rubber bullets. We saw the water cannon, that is the engine, that spray water. We saw armored vehicles that could fire other types of rounds and use the armored presence to intimidate the crowd. So if this situation was developing in Parliament, we should have seen a similar range of police capabilities. The police officers within the House, the police officers outside the House, the police officers on the perimeter, the police officers standing by to move in case the situation deteriorated. I'm trying to suggest that it is not the norm in democracy to involve the police in frontline law enforcement situations. It's not normal. You see, then whoever took the decision, well, I ask that question, whose decision was it? Was it a request by? And in this case, it could only have been made by the clerk of Parliament, because there was no speaker at that time. The leaders of the House, that is the caucuses, could have, gone into a meeting, come to a decision, convey that decision to the clerk of Parliament, for the clerk of Parliament to use other procedures to inform the police commander on the scene to take control of the situation, either to evacuate or whatever it is, or to separate members of Parliament who were exchanging blows and so on. Whose decision was it to invite the military, assuming, into the House of Parliament? And for what purpose? To use the guns, because I've been emphasizing that the military shoots to kill. That is their training. So when you invite the police to go into a House of Parliament, what exactly are they supposed to go and do? Which the police couldn't have done, given the strength and the capabilities of the police that we saw deployed around the EC's office. And I want to also believe that under these circumstances, the same assessment that the police did to arrive at the 6,000 strong police officers as being required for providing security and safety would also have involved this procedure last night and this morning. My argument is that the situation was well within the capability of the police to manage, and there was absolutely no need for other persons than the police to have been involved and called into the House. It's an indictment on our democracy. It shouldn't happen. And those who are taking such decisions to involve the military in such situations are doing more damage than good to our democracy.
Just finally, Colonel, I wonder how we could stop this, because if this was used during the 2020 general elections and we see it even on the floor of Parliament, where else could we end up using it?
It's many sides to the same equation. Now, when I've said that we need professional service commanders and service institutional heads, this is one situation. That if you are a service commander or whatever service that you command, and you are asked to deploy soldiers to Parliament, and you do not ask for clarity on the political role, the understanding of the political directive that you are receiving, and you go ahead and deploy the soldiers, and in the absence of very clear guidance, instructions, orders, on what it is that they are supposed to go and do and how they are supposed to go and do it, you are contributing to the confusion. Then on the side of the politicians who have this penchant or tendency, propensity to always resort to the military to resolve issues that should be resolved by the police, also doing more harm. Look, even the tradition of having military officers standing behind our leaders is not normal. The little research I've done was I started sometime during the revolution when Chairman Rawlings, may his soul rest in peace, you know, because it was a military regime, required that all these service commanders must be there. So invariably the coups and so on were joint police military coups and so on and so forth. Now that has gradually become the norm. Even myself sitting in barracks was at some stage in my career required to stand behind the president. If ceremonial occasions fine, but in other democracies, that function is done by the police.
But can
I worked with the former president when the former president of Zimbabwe visited. That is the late Mugabe. When he came here, he was accompanied by a senior police commissioner of the Zimbabwe Republic Police, not by a senior soldier. You see, so let's have this clean break, what I call a clean break.
Yeah, I get you, Colonel, but can a service commander, you know, ask these questions for clarity, especially when we know that there could be some political underpinnings?
Why can't he? We don't have time. A couple of weeks ago, we heard the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the U.S. giving a statement about where the loyalties of the United States Armed Forces lie. And he was quite insistent and emphatic that loyalty was to the Constitution of the United States of America. Without mentioning names, he said it was not to individuals. So what does the Constitution say? The Constitution says that there shall be established the Ghana Armed Forces, blah, blah, blah. To do what? To defend the territorial integrity of this country, to protect it from external aggression. What was happening in Parliament was a law and order issue for which the same Constitution, I think Article 215 or thereabout, established the Ghana Police Service. So a commander, you know, in any of these institutions has a professional responsibility to advise politicians as to what they can do and what they cannot do. Because we have been failing over many years in telling politicians where the lines must be drawn. That is why the politicians are emboldened all the time to involve the military in issues that the military should not be involved. And it's a danger. You see, it's a danger to our democracy.
Yeah, but Colonel, you've been there before. Is this something, you know, what you suggest that we could do going forward? Is that realistic?
That's what I'm suggesting. That for the events that were unfolding or the processes that Parliament was going to go through to dissolve the 7th Parliament and to inaugurate the 8th Parliament, including the election of a speaker and deputies and so on, that was a police function. So the leadership of Parliament should have been in consultations with the Ghana police. In fact, they should have demanded a briefing by the Ghana police on how they were going to secure those processes. There was no need whatsoever for the military to be there.
Just out of curiosity, also because one of the members of Parliament mentioned a name in terms of where the order for the military came from. What's the procedure from what you know, what you're familiar with? How can you get armed military officers to come into Parliament?
Which is what I've tried to explain, and I've explained in other instances. There is a chain of command within the police hierarchy. So all the police elements within Parliament whatever they call them, have a commander. That commander is the one who assesses the situation and makes a determination that a situation that was unfolding or is unfolding is likely to deteriorate beyond the capacity or capability of the police. And on that determination, he puts it in writing, not even verbal, writing, inviting the military to come in. Now, under these circumstances, let's assume that the military was not even involved. So they would have been embarrassed. That chain of command from that commander at Parliament would have gone to police headquarters. But assuming that there was some military in the vicinity as part of the broad security architecture, that request goes from that commander to the next senior military officer who is in charge of the military group or the military unit or the military whatever. That is a procedure. It must be in writing. You see? But I don't know what led to that, but at least in the video we could see the military entering or persons dressed in uniform. And indeed, looking at the uniform, we know that in this democracy, persons dressed like that can only come from the Ghana Armed Forces. Nobody else is allowed to wear those types of uniforms. And if indeed it's not a Ghana Armed Forces and it's somebody else who has created that kind of unit or force, you see, let's be very, very careful about how I refer to the U.S. one. I was watching the U.S. situation unfolding, trying to see how the political leadership of the country, that is the United States, was responding. And you saw how the leadership, the two leaders of the two parties, made statements. And we saw how the presence of the law enforcement officials, kept increasing to the point that even if they had underestimated or there had been a security failure, as it's now being called, at least they were able now to, increase their numbers and to evacuate the U.S. politicians from the Capitol and protect the building and push back the demonstrators, including imposing a curfew. You see, we must be very, very careful that we don't use institutions to do functions that they are not established to do. That is the danger. We keep mentioning it. For instance, I will always talk about national security. That the Constitution does not establish a national security that is an armed unit that during elections goes around to monitor elections and to secure elections. That is the function of the Ghana Police Service. You see, so the more we create these kinds of parallel, security institutions, extra constitutional, give them weapons, nobody knows their command and control, nobody knows their structures, nobody knows anything about them, but we only see them drawing weapons in public, even including drawing weapons on uniformed police officers. That is a danger to democracy.
So you had Colonel Boaje there talking to my colleague Mamavio Uswa Boaje earlier in the day. He talks about the processes that you have to go through for such deployment to have occurred yesterday with the presence of the military, of course, in the chamber. He talks about who would have made the request. And this is a question that has come up several times. People want to know who made that order. Well, some of you have been reacting to that on social media. I'm going to take a few of your messages before we move on to tell you about our other stories, like more on the new Speaker of Parliament. This one says, good afternoon. look at what your elected members of parliament did to disgrace the party members who elected them. NPP should start now to prepare for the 2024 elections. You don't add your name, but you say thank you. Thank you very much for sending that message. This one says the military will definitely lose respect before Mr. Akufo-Addo finishes his fourth, did you say fourth term? Benson said that. Benson, the president is in his second term. This one says, in fact, both the deputy leadership of parliament, if I understand both deputy leadership of parliament referring to party or parties determine who is speaker of parliament is, then I totally agree with Honorable Kluche Aveji that the 8th parliament is hanging to determine speaker. And then, okay, I don't really understand your message, but this message came from Volta region. Thank you very much for sending that. This is a very interesting one, by the way. It says problem of the day. If ballot papers were located 65, degree west and 20 meters from Carlos and 90 east from 2 meters and 2 meters from Muntaka, A, calculate the speed and velocity it took Carlos in minutes to snatch the ballot papers. B, assuming Carlos runs north, calculate his bearing in relation to his initial position. C, if the speed of Carlos is 30 kilometers per hour, calculate the speed at which Muntaka caught him in 8 seconds. Very, very interesting comments on the back of that. Let's hop on Facebook and find out what people are saying about that video, or those videos that have now gone viral and everybody is talking about it. So let's open this up a little bit. Take a look at what people have written there. Okay, so I'm trying to raise what messages we have on Facebook. I'm having a little bit of a challenge with that, but let's see. This one says, Ghana as a country must bow our heads in shame. The childish behavior by our so-called members of parliament shows that they are not there for our interest, but for their selfish interests. You didn't add your name to it. Benjamin from Nimfasige from Wa West District says, this is very disgraceful and shameful on the part of Parliament. Albert from Akosombo says, what is going on in Parliament today? The NPP say they are the majority. NDC also say they are the majority. What is going on? Please let us know. Albert Edu from Akosombo. Well, Facebook we are now. And this one says that brought fear. So he's talking about the video, the presence of the military at the time they came in. Says that brought the fear of God into the majority, into the minority NDC. That is Fred Mensanyako. Opokuli Williams says these MPs are gradually giving a room for a coup with their lawlessness. Jerry Amwako Wilson said, why didn't they shoot or throw tear gas at the people's representatives this time, but rather used live bullets on the people protecting their thumb in Techiman? Okay. Awura Prosper says, oh, Ghana, in fact, our democracy has been destroyed. How can you do this on camera? And Samuel Kese says, oh, Ghana. So most of you are expressing dismay at what has happened. Well, we'll bring you the report from Sombo, which is the hometown of the new speaker in JoyNews Prime, when Israeli comes on. We'll also do a bit of analysis about what public health experts are saying about having everybody else crammed up in that tent for the inauguration. There's more news at myjoyonline.com. My name is Gifty and Apia. We'll do business live right after this.